Persona 4 was released in 2008, and an updated version with more content called Persona 4 Golden was released in 2012. The game revolves around Yu Narukami, the silent protagonist that you play as, moving to a small, foggy town to live with his uncle when bizarre murders start taking place. It is up to you to investigate, along with your ragtag group of friends. In doing this, you discover that the people who are being killed show up on a mysterious TV channel called the Midnight Channel, after they become famous in the town via regular TV, such as the news. You go through dungeons throughout the game, fighting shadows and saving the people who get taken, while also learning their darkest thoughts.
Hell are you punks doing here? This ain't a show! Get bent!
His name's Kanji Tatsumi. He's quite a handful. He's been crushing biker gangs in the area since middle school.
The game introduces Kanji as a tough bad boy. He's rude to the press and he fights biker gangs. Later in the game, he's shown as being very blushy and nervous around the detective prince, and even asking to see him again. At the time, we know nothing about this detective, who is only called Slender Young Man or Boy in Hat, but we later learn is named Naoto Shirogane.
Did he say he was interested? He's a guy. And I'm a guy, but he's interested in me? I don't know where my head was at. When I came to my senses, I blurted out that I wanted to see him again.
Two guy.
Kanji's shadow self is downright offensive and hard to watch.
Hello, dear viewers. It's time for Bad Bathhouse. Tonight I'll introduce a superb site for those searching for sublime love that surpasses the separation of the sexes. You know I've got a smoking hot body. What should I do with it? My blood is boiling. It makes me want to groove and shake my thing. Here I go!
But through this shadow, we as the audience and the characters in the game see what is clearly a representation of a man who is romantically or at least sexually interested in men, albeit a very stereotypical and played out representation. At this point in the game, I was very sad for Kanji. I was interested to see his character arc as a repressed gay man struggling with his masculinity, and I was excited to see how his and the detective's relationship developed. But that's not what we got. Kanji says that he's simply afraid of or uncomfortable around girls, because they are obnoxious and make fun of him for being interested in stereotypically feminine things.
Oh, how I hate girls. So arrogant and self-centered. They cry if you get angry, they gossip behind your back, they spread nasty lies. They look at me like some disgusting thing and say that I'm a weirdo, laughing at me all the while. You like to sew? What a queer! Painting is so not you.
Aside from this being silly because it implies that the guys in his life aren't making fun of him, it states that his shadow was merely a reflection of a thought he was having and not how he really feels. The game reframes it as a straight man with feminine interests struggling with his masculinity and his journey of no longer fearing women and rejection.
It ain't a matter of guys or chicks. I'm just scared shitless of being rejected. I'm a total pansy who tries to make everyone hate me.
Because if he actually didn't like girls, which is something he said he's wondered about.
So, I started thinking, what if I'm the type who never gets interested in girls?
Then that would be gay. The way that this game, which at the time was hailed for being progressive, handles this is really sad. Instead of saying gay people exist and are cool, the message is, hey, I know you thought this guy was gay, but don't worry, he's just a little scared and confused. He of course is still confused about Naoto, but we'll get to that later. The way the characters, who in the game are your or the protagonist's best friends, treat Kanji is incredibly cruel. Yosuke in one scene asks Kanji if they'll be safe with him sleeping in the same tent.
Are you really...
Am I really what?
What I mean is... Are we gonna be safe alone with you?
Implying that Kanji might try to sexually assault him because he's gay, along with tons of little quips throughout the game that made me uncomfortable as a player. This camping trip scene is the main one cited in most of these examples, but I would also like to point out the time the gang goes to the beach. Kanji shows up wearing an incredibly small bathing suit, and of course Yosuke brings it up.
Dude,
is that?
Was what?
Your swimsuit. What else would I mean?
Later on, a character named Teddy, who in the game is played as a pervert, is apparently trying to take off the girls' swimsuits. We see Kanji come out of the water holding Teddy, and it is revealed by none other than Yosuke that his swimsuit came off, and he is actually holding Teddy in front of his naked genitals.
Hey, quit squirming. You run off and I'm toast.
But if I don't run off, my dignity will be in ruins!
In the game, this is shown as a quirky, funny moment. The girls come out of the water, Kanji's wearing some seaweed, they call him a creep. Stuff like that happens often in Japanese media. This part made me uncomfortable because it makes Kanji, and by extension gay men, seem predatory. I hated most moments where they make Kanji the butt of the joke, but moments where Kanji is portrayed as someone who is chomping at the bit to be as naked as possible, and especially around straight men, are harmful. There is also the Culture Festival. Basically, as payback for a joke by Yosuke in which he entered them into a pageant, the girls in the group entered you, the protagonist, and the boys in the group into a drag/cross-dressing pageant. This is yet another moment that would normally be a goofy moment in 2008 to 12 Japanese media, while making me moderately uncomfortable as a sociology major in 2024. But because they also entered Kanji in that, I had to stop playing for the night and play when I could emotionally handle it. I didn't want to see him forced to do that.
I ain't doing this. Period.
He's already struggling with what it means for him to be a man. The actual result wasn't as upsetting from the perspective of not wanting Kanji to be sad, but still pretty gross because of the classmates' reaction to drag.
Ugh! Ew, that's so creepy!
This is wrong on every level.
Also, Teddy stole the show.
Calling herself king of the TV world, she's a cute, sexy little number. Give a warm welcome to Teddy-chan!
Give me your hearts.
But it still made me sad to see Kanji sad. Remember the detective prince Naoto Shirogane? Let's talk about Naoto.
Tonight's report will focus on this detective prince, Naoto Shirogane, whose handsome looks are sweeping the nation. Thanks for being on the show.
No. The pleasure is all mine.
First, as regards commonalities between the victims, all of them were kidnapped before they were murdered. The victims were all locals who had been the focus of recent media attention, becoming suddenly well-known. That is the most likely scenario.
Naoto is a cool and smart master detective who's also younger than the protagonist by a year. When Naoto shows up on the Midnight Channel, the shadow on screen says that he will be involved in a bodily alteration process.
Good evening, everyone. I am the detective prince, Naoto Shirogane. Welcome to Experiment of the Century, the Genome Project. I will be experimenter and experimentee both in a forbidden yet wonderful bodily alteration process. You shall witness my departure into a new realm, the moment of a new birth.
I, as a player, assumed it was something to make Naoto seem taller or more adult-like. The group makes fun of Naoto for being short, and a cop you talk to during an investigation reveals that the police treat Naoto like a kid. But watch this.
Naoto. Such a cool, manly name. But a name doesn't change the truth. It doesn't let you cross the barrier between the sexes. How could you become an ideal man when you were never male to begin with?
That's right, Naoto is trans. Or so I thought. I was really excited to find that out. It was very unexpected for me, but once again, my queer hopes were quickly dashed by this game. According to Naoto, she, it's important to note that everybody in the game uses she/her pronouns when referring to Naoto, basically immediately after learning Naoto's sex assigned at birth. In this video, I will also mostly be using she/her pronouns to refer to Naoto, because that is what everybody online and in the game and in most situations uses, but it does make me a little bit uncomfortable to use she, her pronouns because I still feel uncomfortable thinking of Naoto as a girl because of how trans she is presented. Because of that uncomfortability, I will mostly just be using Naoto's name, but I think that if Naoto were a real person, Naoto would probably use he, him pronouns, but I don't know that, so I'm just gonna say what everyone else says. She is not trans, but that her ideal image of a detective is male, and that the police force is male-dominated, and that the police would look for any reason to not respect Naoto.
My sex doesn't fit my ideal image of a detective. Besides, the police department is a male-oriented society. If they had the slightest concrete reason to look down on me, no one would need me anymore.
Now, aside from the line about sexism in the police and women being treated as unequal, which is a pretty base thing to say, Naoto turns to her shadow and says essentially, I don't want to be a man, I just want respect, and I should accept myself for who I am.
Hey, you must know already that what you yearn for isn't to become an adult or become a boy.
You're absolutely right. What I should yearn for, no. What I must strive for isn't to become a man. It's to accept myself for who I really am.
This reveal would be fine and feel like a Mulan type story if afterwards Naoto wasn't still clearly uncomfortable with being feminine. Her character design doesn't change, and she continues to wear the male school uniform. Now, one could chalk that up to the creators not wanting to draw new art, so we can just move on from that. But in moments where Naoto has to be feminine or expose her body, she's incredibly uneasy and embarrassed. Naoto continues to dress in masculine, very conservative clothes. Naoto no longer being a man also means something for Kanji. Now that Naoto is a girl, Kanji wasn't gay for having a crush on her. Phew. I was really, really worried that there was about to be a gay person in my video game. We need to talk about how the characters in the game treat Naoto. There is a scene where the entire gang goes to the doctor in order to see if being in the TV world has had any adverse effects on their health. The doctors take everyone's measurements. Obviously, Teddy has the results on a stack of paper and begins to read out joking stuff like shortest legs. Yes. Are you done? Thank you. Yosuke, who else, interjects by saying he should at least say the girl's measurements. It is then implied that Naoto's breasts are larger than they seem, as Rise reads the results in shock.
Look, if you're gonna blab at all, you might as well tell us the girl's measurements.
Oh yeah, Naoto-kun's in here too, huh? Let's see. Naoto-kun's is... Huh? Is this for real? Wait, isn't this measured wrong?
This is proven to be true in a later cutscene that is fully animated, unlike the rest of the game, when everyone goes to a hot spring and Naoto goes with the girls. At the beginning, Naoto is absent from the group, and they are all wearing towels, until Rise pushes her out despite protests, and a very awkward moment unfolds, where everyone is looking at Naoto's chest, along with a cartoonish boing sound effect.
Huh? Where's Naoto-kun? Huh? There you are. Jeez, no point being embarrassed now.
Wait, Rise-san?
Come on, just get inside.
Jeez.
Oh, I see. So, the truth comes out now, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
What's gotten into you all?
Here we have yet another scene that I could barely watch and had to sit and gather my thoughts for a while afterward. Then there's the Culture Festival. You remember that? Well, it happens after we learn that Naoto is AFAB, and everyone immediately begins treating Naoto as a girl, so of course Naoto also gets entered in the pageant. There's a scene where Kanji begs Naoto to do the pageant to get rid of his doubts about his sexuality.
So, is it a deal? The four of us will be in the beauty pageant?
What are you saying?
I beg you, please be in it. If you do, my, doubts will finally be cleared. Come on! Make me a man!
Doubts? What are you talking about?
Look, just do it, damn it!
I feel like I don't even need to explain the level of assholery that is entering a person who you know to be struggling with their gender identity into a pageant where they will have to flaunt themselves. But I shouldn't have to explain it. I will now show the text I sent my friends when I realized what was about to happen and why I couldn't continue playing for the night. Remember how Teddy won the pageant? Well, the prize for winning is to be an honorary judge in the female pageant. With his newfound power, Teddy decides that a swimsuit portion should be added to the female pageant. Naoto is very uncomfortable with this and flat out refuses.
I decree that one of the judging criteria later this afternoon will be... Ta-da! A swimsuit competition!
There's no way! Absolutely no way that I'm wearing a swimsuit.
And does not show up to the pageant.
Huh? Miss Naoto? She's not coming out.
From my perspective, I was thankful for this because I didn't want to see Naoto any more uncomfortable than she was already being made. I know that some people might be thinking stuff like, so what if Kanji isn't gay and Naoto isn't trans? You're just inserting gay stuff where there doesn't need to be. Or maybe you're thinking, actually they aren't supposed to be queer, they're just supposed to be outcasts. That's a great question, fictional person that I made up. The problem isn't that they aren't queer. There are so many games without queer people. The problem is that Kanji and Naoto were meant to lure in queer people, to make them think that there was the representation that queer people so desperately crave, while still keeping heterosexual, homophobic, transphobic audiences happy. The problem is the use of these characters as a foil for what normal is. It's not, hey, here's some interesting characters questioning their identity and being queer. It's, hey, queers, we know you like gay characters, so here's some characters that might be gay, we don't know. But for everyone who's a weird homophobic freak, don't worry, they're still cishet. The problem comes when you start to think about the implications of these characters not being queer. The homophobic Sana cutscene? Extra homophobic, now that instead of being a repressed gay man's stereotype of himself, it is instead a straight man's version of what a man who's attracted to men is, and a reflection of his fears for what he could be. His cries to be accepted and his question of what it means to be manly.
I don't care who! Won't someone, anyone please accept me? Stop it! Accept me for who I am! What does it mean to be a guy? What does it mean to be manly?
Still relatable to queer audiences, but it no longer cuts as deep because it could mean anything. Naoto's shadow, no longer a trans person who wants surgery or to alter their bodies to match how they feel. Now it's just a cis woman who wants to fit in with her male coworkers. Naoto not being trans also brings up harmful ideas for trans people. The idea that biological sex trumps everything about how a person identifies, and the idea that surgery is necessary to be trans. Remember what Naoto's shadow said? A name doesn't change the truth. It doesn't let you cross the barrier between the sexes. How could you become an ideal man when you were never a male to begin with? I'd like to talk about how problematic almost everything said here is. 1, the idea that changing your name, pronouns, and how you're perceived is still not enough to be the gender one identifies as. All of these are necessary, but if someone does all 3 of those things, it should be pretty clear what gender they are. 2, the use of the word truth to refer to gender being set in stone based on biological sex. 3, the idea that there's a significant barrier between the sexes, like went beyond reproductive parts in biology. 4, the idea that a trans man could never be an ideal man, which feels a lot like saying that you'll never be a real man. 5, the Shadow straight up outs Naoto as being trans, which is super uncool to do to anybody. Persona games love juking the players, having something insane happen and then going like, psych, they were dead the whole time, or psych, they were alive the whole time, or this guy was the bad guy the whole time and you had no idea. With Kanji and Naoto, what this game is doing is saying, psych, you thought that these characters were abnormal and weird and gay, but don't worry, they're both still cishet. Nothing abnormal's happening here. Everybody that you care about in this game, there's nothing wrong with them.